Don't want this on. Here we go.
Well, good morning, everyone. This is Erace March 4th, 2023. Okay, I'm Nancy Moore. I will start by, I've been part of Erace since June of 2007. Okay, Eracism is the slogan of the group Erace, which was formed in New Orleans in the summer of 1993. We seek ways through person-to-person communication to show that we are committed to treating all human beings with love, respect, empathy, compassion, and humility. Join us. Erace is an organization that does not espouse any political party, and we have no religious affiliation. We believe in acceptance of all people, and no personal attacks of any kind will be tolerated. We come with the intention to listen and learn and not to argue. Okay, we begin today by acknowledging that what we know as the United States is the ancestral and unceded territory of many indigenous peoples, and that there are many more nations and tribes that could be named here. Members of our meeting group today are on the lands of the Chitimacha and the Choctaw in New Orleans, the Creeks and Cherokees in Atlanta, the Takawan, Lipan, Apache, and Comanche in Austin, the Lenape and Piscataway in Washington, D.C., the Wampanoag and Nipmuc peoples in Boston, the Kalia and Mojave in Riverside, and the Lumbee in Fayetteville. We thank their ancestors for being stewards of these lands through the generations and through today. We need to protect and honor the history and people of these places despite centuries of colonial theft and violence. We should always remember that we are still on indigenous lands and it will always be indigenous lands. Okay, first we're gonna go around and we're gonna have everyone introduce themselves based on how I see you on my screen. Okay, so we will start with Marva.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Barbara. I'm located in the New Orleans area, and I look forward to this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Marion.
Good morning again to some, and good morning to those we didn't see in the board meeting. I'm Marion. I live in the New Orleans area in a neighborhood called Gentilly, and Marva and I live a few blocks apart. I joined the Erace discussions in June of 1993. And I always look forward to these discussions. They are always interesting. Glad to be here. Glad to see everybody.
Phyllis.
Good morning. I'm Phyllis. I'm in New Orleans and I've been coming to Erace meetings since 2008.
Thank you. Louise.
Hi, Louise here. Been coming to Erace meetings for over 2 decades, first in New Orleans, now in Austin. And sorry, I'm a little bit heady, full of goop, but glad to be here.
Thank you. Bill.
I'm Bill Ives. I've been coming to Erace for about 6 years before the pandemic, and I always learn something every time. Nancy picks great articles, as does everyone else. So I'm looking forward to this discussion. Thank you, Nancy.
All right, thank you, Bill. Teresa.
Hi, I'm Teresa. I'm in Fayetteville, North Carolina. I've been coming since last year, last August. Thank you.
Thank you. Beatrice.
Hi, I'm Beatrice. I'm here in East Point, Georgia, right outside of Atlanta. Been coming to Erace, started in 1993 in my hometown. Always glad to be with you all. Hate to miss you on the times when our Atlanta group is missing. It's meeting, but I love you.
Thank you. Stanton.
Good morning, Stanton, Austin. I got my eye drops in, my nasal spray down, and my antihistamine, so I'm ready to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Stanton. Marla.
Good morning, I'm Marla. I've been coming to Erace for the last few years and looking forward to today's discussion. Also, I'll be out probably the next few weeks for various reasons, out of town, etc. So we'll miss you when I'm gone.
Okay, thank you, Marla. Cindy.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Cindy Morse in New Orleans. I'm married to Bill. We've been coming, I don't know, 5 or 6 years. But I've certainly heard about it much longer.
Okay. Thank you, Cindy. Jean.
Hello, I'm Jean Walker in Silver Spring, Maryland, and I haven't been able to take my pills yet. I have an upper respiratory infection, maybe anyway, but looking forward to the discussion. I've been coming for about 2 years.
Thank you, Jean.
Thank you.
Okay, Leonetta.
Good morning. I'm Renetta from New Orleans, and I've been a member of Erace since I was an intern in undergrad.
Thank you, Leonetta. Francie.
Hi, Francie Manning, Austin. I'm cooking right now, getting ready, so that's why you see me moving around. I agree with Marianne, the discussions are always very interesting. Thanks, Nancy.
Thank you. Gigi Greer.
My name is Greer, and I've been attending Erace since about 2008 post Katrina, and I look forward to these discussions every Saturday.
Okay, thank you, Greer. And Glenn.
Peace be unto everyone. My name is Glenn Abdullah. I've been coming to Erace for 29 years. Don't look like I'm getting nowhere with these people.
Well, thank you, Glenn. Thank you for your effort and your tenaciousness. And 29 years is a long time. Congratulations. Okay. The reason I have to do next. Okay. It says after everyone introduces themselves, explain the format of the meeting, which most people have been here before. So you raise one finger and you wave it around so that I can see it to put you on the list. We go and order the list, try to keep your comments to about 2 minutes. Be respectful, do not interrupt the speaker, no side comments, no personal attacks, no name calling. If you want to ask a clarifying question of the speaker, you can by raising 2 fingers. All right, and the point of the clarifying question is I didn't understand what you meant by, or could you further explain what you meant by? Okay, only 2 clarifying questions of each speaker. Okay, we can also, if there's too much back and forth, use point of order. And then 15 minutes, usually like 20 minutes or so before the end of the meeting, which is at 11:30. We will have a 1-minute wrap up, with the exception of those who have not spoken at all. They get their full 2 minutes, and it is definitely okay to pass if you wish to pass, if you don't have anything. Amal has joined us. Amal, would you like to introduce yourself? Hello?
Yeah, I'm here. I was just unmuting. Yes, I'm Amal. Been coming to Erace since 1997, and always enjoy the exchange.
Okay, the reason that I brought the article was not to pick on the state of Florida again, which is seemingly going through a lot, in my opinion, due to Ron DeSantis, which is scary. And I think he is a scary person. I chose this part of it that he wants to, he not wants to, they have dismantled the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, which I think in any organization is extremely important. It is important to have diversity, equity, and inclusion. And the fact that they dismantled that office, he started with New College, but it is going to spread to other institutions of higher learning. They already dismantled the AP class. And now what he wants to do is he wants newspaper journalists and bloggers to register. And I'm not sure who he wants them to register with, but they have to register. So what he's attempting to do is silence any backlash, or negative comments being written about him in the press as he makes this bid for president. And so the state of Florida, I feel, is their system of democracy is under attack, because that is essentially censurism, to do that if you're going to penalize people who write negative comments about you. So anyway, that's why I brought this article, was because, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and we've talked about it some before, is very important in any organization. And I feel that Florida is on the road to, I'm not sure if it's fascism, but they are dismantling democracy in that state. So anyway, that's why I brought it. And so the list is open.
I'd like to ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
What is
Bill.
diversity and equity? Give me an example of diversity and equity in society.
Okay. If you see this in larger institutions, but primarily not for profit, sometimes not for profit, but definitely in government organizations, and particularly in education, higher education. And diversity, equity, and inclusion, it's like the EEO office. It used to be called the EEO office. Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
From the 70s? Okay,
Yes.
well, they just kind of changed the name of it, and now it's diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so it's to make sure that minorities, they have an equal a number of minorities in certain positions. It's to make sure that they are paid equitably, all right? And also that they are included, okay? Because you can have diversity, you can even have equity, but if you don't have inclusion in management making positions, what you have is a plantation. And so that's what diversity.
Okay, put me on the list.
Okay, so we have Bill and then we have Glenn. Anybody else? And Marion. Okay, let's start. Bill.
I don't normally go first, but
Jean. And Jean.
go
Okay.
first this time because I want to give you a little bit of context about New College. But I want to add to the list of ridiculous things that are going on in Florida. The Republican legislation has introduced legislation outlawing the Democratic Party in the state of Florida. There's a law that said if a party endorses slavery, it cannot be functioned. And historically, the Democratic Party was what is now the Republican Party. And they outlined, but one thing I'll say now, my cousin was in the first class at New College, graduated in '68. And so I had experience with New College when it first started. And my cousin was extremely smart. She could have gone to any school, but she chose New College, which was not heard of at the time, over Ivy League schools. She liked the concept. And the concept of New College, it was started in Sarasota by it was a private school by some conservatives who wanted to create an Ivy League school of the South. But they were not prepared for the students who showed up. They thought the students would be conservative dress, and but the students who showed up, including my cousin, were very progressive politically, and a lot of them were hippies. And so they were shocked at the student body. They didn't know what they were getting into. My cousin presented as a conservative person, where the politics were very progressive. She was very liberal.
Bill, you want to get back up on the list?
I'll listen to some other people first.
Okay. Next week, we have Glenn, Marion, Jean, and Beatrice. Anyone else? Yeah, Bill. Okay. All right, Glenn.
Yeah, well, yeah, I believe that a nation should have diversity and in this manner, that you don't purposely shut someone out because of the color of their skin or because of their sex, but just giving somebody a position and they're not qualified for the position, whether it be an African-American, whether it be a white woman or whoever, a white man. Just give them that position just to maintain some certain racial, some diversity. I would not enjoy football if they would put people just in there for diversity purposes. African Americans dominate most of the sports because they got it by merit, not by diversity. In the beginning, it took forcing diversity, but now it's not that way. And a lot of African American are CEOs of big industries, not because of they put them in there because they was trying to achieve some kind of diversity. They merited it. And that's what I like to see going forward, that it be merited.
Leonetta.
That's it.
Okay, thank you, Glenn. Okay, we have Marion, Jean, Beatrice, Bill, Phyllis, Cindy, Marla, and Leonetta. Anyone else? Okay, next we have Marion.
Okay, I'm concerned, I did a little math, and I'm concerned that percentage-wise, 73% of the population in Florida is white. This is not to say, and I'm not saying that all 73% of the people are bigoted or prejudiced or biased or racist, but the 27% that's left could be, or most probably, or indigenous people or Black people. And I don't think they're gonna have too much say-so. And I'll go back to repeating what I just said. I don't want to assume that the 73% of the white population thinks and acts and goes along with Ron DeSantis's projects, but it does concern me. I saw some interviews on television by a reporter who interviewed some people in Florida. They were all white people, and they lean heavily toward Ron DeSantis's point of view. So it really does bother me that these 27% people, 27% of the population may not have too much of a voice, and they may get left out of a lot of decision-making policies. And it's scary to think that in this country, this is really going to be a serious matter to consider, that the small percentage of people may be overwhelmed with some unfair practices. And maybe because
Marion,
of
would you like to get
skin
back on the
color.
list?
No, I'm
And
gonna listen. 2 minutes
All
went
right,
by
Stanton,
fast.
it
I'll
does.
listen.
Stanton has a clarifying question.
Yeah, Marion, do you know whether or not those statistics for who is included in white includes Latinos, or are they part of the 27%?
They're part of the 27%.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Next, we have Jean.
Well, I just wanted to point out that the Attorney General for the state of Maryland, along with I think 16 other Attorney Generals of various states, have issued a opposition to DeSantis' position. And they're concerned, constitutionally, they've raised arguments, and they're concerned for their students from their states who are attending the schools in Florida. And it was a very direct, kind of opposition to the Attorney General. And just a comment with respect to what Glenn said, nobody, no matter what their color, sex, disability, gender, anything, gets up to top positions without being highly, highly qualified. And generally those of color are more qualified than they even have to be. But so the issue when they have the diversity, equity, inclusion, it also provides counseling to people who find themselves in positions that they might otherwise not be in. And so in fact, one of the persons at the college said that they benefited so much when they came to the university because they were able to get the counseling there. I mean, it's to help people get along with each other. It's not pushing people who are not qualified, so thank you.
Thank you, Jean. I just wanted to add a couple of questions that people can't hear the timer. This is always an issue that you can't hear the timer, but as long as I can hear the timer, we're good. Okay, next we have Beatrice.
I'm kind of echoing a couple of comments that Jean just made. There's no assumption that a diverse group of employees indicates that there's a lack of qualification, that you just go out and get people of some color, some group, and just have, so you can have a number of people on the list. That was the argument that was made about affirmative action, and we have to be really careful about that. Jean is right. For the most part, people are more highly qualified than others. I've sat on panels when I was in personnel at Montgomery County Public Schools and interviewed African-American candidates that were high and above, beyond what any other candidate might have brought. A couple of comments that were in the article. The chief diversity officer said they haven't taken time to learn what our office does. I mean, DeSantis is just going along with a hose and just spraying anybody that happens to be in the way. Absolutely ridiculous. And another comment was that this helps professors understand students that are different from them. These are important. This is very, very important. This is very significant work. And so the comments that this is political coercion, people like DeSantis and others are so afraid of the changing demographics of this country that they have completely lost their minds, and they're making decisions that are going to hurt everybody. So I have grave concerns about the whole bit, the libraries and taking books out and denying young people hormone therapy. Just the whole thing of we've othered everybody. I'm not, people are othering people and just making bad decisions. And real quickly, the difference in equality and equity is really, really important. That if somebody has 25% and somebody has 75 and you're giving everybody 25% or something, that's not equity. That might be equality, but you're not getting people to where they need to be. So I think the DEI is a really important office at this school, but in general, just looking at the population of people. I'm done.
Thank you, Beatrice. Next we have Bill, Phyllis, Cindy, Marla, Leonetta, and Stanton. Does anybody else want to be on the list?
First of
Okay.
all, I want
Next we have Bill. Okay.
I want to second everything Beatrice said. The diversity officers are very important. But also the 73% whites in Florida. There are some whites like my cousins who are very anti-racist, very politically progressive. When I organized a reunion in 2003 of my cousins who I hadn't seen in years. My cousins from Alabama, South Carolina, and North Carolina. I didn't know what their politics would be, but I discovered to my pleasure, they're all progressive liberals, very much opposed to racism. But I would also say that's a small minority in the South, that there are some in the South who feel that way. Anyway, New College, there's a section I see, I have the article up now, and it switched at videos. I saw a segment and Alex Wagner on MSNBC. She went to New College and she interviewed a group of students, and the students were, I don't know who picked the students, but there was Asian, Middle Eastern, African American, transgender, and they all felt they came to New College because they would feel safe and safe to do what they wanted to do. In the beginning of the segment, Ron DeSantis talked about zombie studies, but New College has the highest per capita of Fulbright scholarships of any school in the country.
Bill, you want to get back on the list?
No, I think I've said enough for now.
Okay, Phyllis has a clarifying question.
Yes.
What did Ron DeSantis mean by zombie studies?
You have to ask him. I don't know.
Okay.
It was a context. He wanted to put discipline into the curriculum. And he said, we can't have people getting degrees in zombie studies. That was just a figment of his imagination. In the group that Alex Wagner interviewed, there was an economics major who wanted to go to Wall Street to make money. And there was a whole variety of people could choose what they wanted to.
Thank you.
But he was just making things up.
Okay, thank you. We have Phyllis, Cindy, Marla, Leonetta, and Stanton. Anyone else? Okay, Phyllis.
First, I wanted to say that white men have been getting positions they aren't qualified for a really long time. So DEI is to help bring some justice to that situation so that people who are more qualified than your average mediocre white man can actually have a chance in the world. And if somebody's going to ask me to name such a man, I will say Elon Musk. So that clarifying question has been answered. Also, I would say if there is such a thing as studying zombie literature, it would actually be really interesting, because that would be about human nature and how humans deal with stress, and community versus individualism. I mean, I watch zombie shows, and that would be actually something worthwhile. I took a class, I was an English major, I had a class in Stephen King novel when I was in undergraduate. So I think, I have huge concerns about Ron DeSantis and anybody who emulates him. He is a fascist. He wants, power over everything. He thinks that his power over the Disney district in Florida is going to give him the power to dictate what kind of movies they make. Like, he's really overwrought with his power and what he thinks his capabilities are as the governor of Florida. So if he does run for president and gets that position, God forbid, I think it would be a really bad thing for America. And yeah, that's all I'll say for now.
All right, thank you, Phyllis. Next we have Cindy.
You can put me on the list.
Okay. Cindy, unmute.
Not entirely sure I have it organized. The whole thing of starting a university as not as New College got started, but as Ron DeSantis thinks he's starting a university. He's putting his mind, his ideas, his philosophy, his theories into the curriculum, and that's ridiculous because he's coming from a fascist background. His beliefs fit fascism pretty well, which is a little scary. But hopefully the students will stand up to him and accept that he's chosen the new board members, etc. Hopefully the system will stand up to him, but I'm not sure the board will. We'll see with time. Not an easy place to be, but how a university can shift with one person is pretty amazing. But I think we've seen it with things happening in this, well, certainly with Trump, but in this state as well. Good luck to them, and we can input. Enough said.
Okay, thank you, Cindy. Next we have Marla.
Yeah, I was just thinking about DEI and what it does. In the workplace, I think in most instances, DEI is just bare minimum. I think most of the time, DEI in the workplace does not go far enough as far as activities and so forth and things that employees hear. It's usually just a bunch of check boxes or videos that we have to watch, and then you're checked off and you're marked off for the year. And I don't know that, again, I think it's just bare minimum, but still necessary. I think a lot of times they don't go far enough. In thinking about the university level, I just started thinking again about my daughter's experience, and I looked up at the University of Arkansas, what does the DEI office there do? And they talk about creating and helping to create a campus environment where everyone can thrive and succeed. You're encouraged to celebrate Cultural Heritage Month, stay up to date on events happening across the campus, as well as in our Northwest Arkansas community. So it spreads beyond the university itself and it goes into the community. Some of the activities that they have are counseling free of charge. These are all things under the umbrella of DEI, okay? Menstrual products drive, survivor support groups, introduction to African-American art classes, Les Salons, which is a French open office with informal conversation in French and crafts taking place in French, therapy with dogs, weekly digital humanities meetup, Black music symposium, and Black literature symposiums. along with, of course, women's history and that sort of thing, all the months that are celebrated. So I think that gives exposure to kids, that this may be like their first real exposure to learning about some of these things. And it goes beyond just trying to make sure that there is representation within the university of people.
Thank you,
of color.
Marla.
Thank you.
Would you
Oh,
like
and
to get
also
back
there
on the
are
list?
zombie studies.
Teresa,
Not at Arkansas, but at St. Xavier University. Okay, anyway.
Teresa? Bill? Okay, let me see. Next we have Leonetta, and then we have Stanton and Glenn. Does anyone else want to be on the list? Beatrice? No?
I'm sorry, no, I was
Okay.
pointing to Teresa, which makes no sense. I'm pointing
Oh.
to the screen. That makes no sense. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
You can put me on, Nancy.
Greer? Anyone else? Okay, Leonetta.
Yes, I think this man needs some therapy, Phyllis. I think we need to make an appointment for him. He is crazy. He's looking for a problem. He's taken a political issue and gone after people that are really affecting folks' lives. People's lives are in danger, and this equity and diversity is a good thing. It's nothing that's going to hurt anybody. It can really help people. It helps in the workplace. It like Marla says, it helps expose whites to things that they wouldn't ordinarily be exposed to culturally, personally, and things like that. I think that the Republican Party they're losing on so many levels, and this is something that they didn't latch on to. And I don't even know what the word woke be. To me, it equates black educated people that they're against. I don't know what they say woke is, but to me, that's what it looks like. Any educated black person that has anything to say, they label them as woke, and they're attacked. And that's what's happening to the black women in Congress. They had to get security for them, and God help this United States if this man is elected president. I truly believe we would have a race war. And when we up here fighting each other, Russia and China gonna come in and take over. And I hope that I'm wrong. I hope that I'm wrong, because we already armed. Just about everybody in the United States got a gun. And we have crazy people all over the place. And if this man is elected, that'll be the fuse to set it off. And a God knows.
Leonetta, would you like to get back on the list?
No.
No? Okay. Next, we have Stanton, Glenn, and Greer. Anyone else like to be on the list? Bill and Phyllis. Okay, Stanton.
Back in the mid-90s, Lawton Childs was the governor of Florida at the time, and he was running for re-election against Jeb Bush. And Jeb Bush was going around talking about how he was married to a Hispanic woman and that he spoke Spanish. And then Lawton Childs made a speech on the stump that said, well, Jeb Bush may speak Spanish, but I speak cracker. And Lawton Childs won that election pretty handily. And I think that DeSantis is just taking a chapter out of that playbook. I don't think DeSantis is crazy. I don't think DeSantis believes any of this. I think DeSantis is too well educated and too smart to really believe what he is preaching, but he knows what sells. And he's appealing to that base of crackers in Florida, and they're the problem. He's a problem, but he's just the catalyst for the problem. The underlying problem is the people who don't like what's happening in this country, who don't like seeing the rise of people who were formerly in positions of inferiority and subservience. And I'm going to repeat something that somebody said last week about why they left the Democratic Party. They don't like seeing what's happening with pro-abortion. They don't like seeing what's happening with gay rights. And I think there are a lot of people out there who feel that way. So if you appeal to that element, yeah, they're going to take the bait and they're going to vote the way you want them to vote. And you're going to do things that just want to keep feeding the monster. And I think that's what's happening now. And I don't know how these people get educated and convinced that what they are told is happening is just a changing society and improvements in society, but they see it as a step backwards. And I don't know how to correct that problem.
Thank you, Stanton. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think that DeSantis is another, like a byproduct of Trump, and he's just smarter. He's smarter than Trump, and that's scary. Okay, thank you. All right, we have Glenn, Greer, Bill, and Phyllis. Anyone else? Teresa, great. All right, Glenn.
Yeah, well, I don't see DeSantis being the next president of the United States. He's only, his base is only in Florida, basically because most of the people there are Republicans, and they don't like Democrats giving the taxing them, and that's the main thing, the taxation part of what the Democrats bring. He's another Trump, and most of the people in 2 elections, you know, vote. The majority of the people in this country vote against Trump, and that's the same thing going to happen again. He is Trump, and if most of the people in the United States are going to vote against him. He's trapped. He can't change his colors. If that base that he's appealing to will get him the nomination, but they're not strong enough to give him the presidency. And he may not even get the nomination because Trump wants the nomination. So, you know, I'm not worried about DeSantis or anybody who will be running on that kind of platform. That's my opinion.
I hope you're right, Glenn. All right, thank you. Greer. Greer.
Okay, I'm here. Okay, we've been talking about diversity, equity, inclusion since the 1960s and beyond, and I would say even beyond that. And with companies in trying to, I guess, manifest this, it wasn't manifested because of a moral or just right. It was because of financial benefits. So just because you hire people in your company, they don't say, hey, this is where I have to hire you. I have to make you a CEO. No, you could have diversity in your company with 1,000 employees if it just basically says you have to hire people. It doesn't require it to be a skill set job. It doesn't require it to be a CEO job. All it requires is that you hire. So if you got 1,000 people in a company and 300 of them either work as custodial or in the kitchen or in the mail room, you've met that achievement. So you get the financial benefits of that. And there's a difference between equality and equity. That's 2 different things. Equality means everybody's treated the same. Equity means you give people what they need in order for them to achieve. If everybody's running around on 2 legs and I only have 1 leg, then I need a prosthetic to even compete. We're still talking about this, and all these years have passed. Things aren't moving forward, they're moving backwards slowly. And with each change, we lose something. This is basically letting the police police the police. And people don't really see it like that. I think we're getting too.
Greer, you want to get back on the list?
Just hold up. I'll let you know.
Okay, thank you. Next we have Bill, Phyllis, and Teresa. Anyone want to be on the list? Okay, Bill.
I hope Greer is right, but not right. I hope she's right in terms of equity prevailing. But I just wanted to go back. When I looked at the article again this morning, there was a new video by Alex Wagner, who went to New College, and I highly recommend watching that video. It was not there when I first, it was another video that Alex Wagner went and talked to the New College students, and what they said was important. Speaking of zombie studies, I saw an article in Rolling Stone that says DeSantis appointed a person to the Disney board who said tap water is turning people gay. He said that with a straight face. And that's crazy. This is the kind of crazy people he endeavors. I hope Greer is right in terms of, or maybe it was Greer, I lose track of people who said that DeSantis can't win in a national election. I hope that's the case, but I don't think DeSantis will get the Republican nomination because people are still loyal to Trump. I saw, this is just an anecdote, but I saw a person interviewing a whole bunch of Republicans, and he asked them who they wanted for president. They all said Trump. And there was some woman who had the DeSantis for governor t-shirt. And he went over to talk to her thinking he would find a DeSantis supporter. And she said, she hesitated a while, and then she said Trump for president.
Okay, you want to be back on the list?
No, not now.
Not now? Okay, we have Phyllis and Teresa. Phyllis?
So I think there is already a war going on against Black people and other people of color in this country. It just hasn't turned to bloodshed yet, for the most part. Except, you know, police and random citizens shooting Black people. But I think that is going on. I think an example is the Alabama state, I think it was Alabama, it might have been Mississippi state rep who wanted to add to a death penalty bill that it could include hanging by tree. And he later allegedly apologized for bringing that up, but a reporter followed him out of the chamber and was up in his face about it, and he was just like snickering, really. It was gross. And there is also the GOP and their basic culture war BS, and they're waging a war against women and our rights. They're waging a war against LGBTQ people and their rights. And you know, it's interesting, they so often bring up, especially with women and LGBTQIA people, like, oh, we got to protect the children. Well, why don't we talk about all of the clergy people in Christian churches who are being found guilty of molesting children? The Southern Baptist Convention released a 250-page document, not 250 names, a 250-page list of people in their denomination who have molested and abused children, who should have been able to trust them. And then, you know, the Catholic Church has its many, many issues. And, you know, when these things come up, of course, they try to claim that those people molesting children of the same gender were gay, but no, that's not how child molestation works. So I really think we should call them out every time they try to raise that BS that they're trying to protect the children from drag queens. That's just, I would leave my child, if I had one, with a drag queen any day of the week over leaving them with any Christian clergy person, except for the ones that I personally know. Thanks.
Thank you, Phyllis.
You can add me to the list, Nancy.
All right, Greer. All right. And we have Teresa and then Greer.
Yes, thank you. Marla, your comment or reading about the programs that I guess it was the university for diversity and the programming, and you made me think of something. It's just like, I was surprised the number of white people who didn't see that they had a culture. So added to the list of, and this is just a, hey, what if we looked under the umbrella of whiteness and said, you're not white, you come from Scotland, you come from Estonia, you come from the Ukraine, you come from the, and like, I was just thinking, what if there were some look under the umbrella of whiteness? You couldn't call it that, because then that would get defensive, because the white supremacy depends upon filling out the ranks, and it's just like, okay, you come to this country, you are white. You know, you forget about and just disregard any traditions that your people come from, and your roots start here as being white. I think that would also be, in addition to the, you know, indigenous foods from different places or whatever. You know, we're coming up on St. Patrick's Day. How many people will just go out and drink green beer and not even think about, oh, wait a minute, did this tradition start in Ireland? You know, we're not all Irish. We're not all whatever. And you know what made my stomach turn to seeing Trump with that taco bowl, and I just thought, oh, okay. But my point is, it would also be interesting if we looked under the umbrella of whiteness and said, this is your cultural roots. That should also be a part, just like looking at instruments that come from African countries or South America or whatever. Let's look at these European countries and let's stop calling it white. Let's look at the specific European traditions and call it that. I think that would also be interesting. And to let white Americans know, you do have culture, you do have roots beyond this country.
Thank you, Teresa. We have Greer and then Phyllis.
Right now, and I'm even going to say in the past, our society, especially the people who are at the bottom, we constantly live in a society where we're beat up financially, mentally, and even spiritually, because we're living in a war zone. And right now, things are like really getting tumultuous, and people are just basically trying to survive now. But with that going on, that's generally when people slowly but slowly, I'm talking about the government, they start chipping away at your rights. And you don't notice what's going on, because basically, again, you're just trying to survive. And that's what they're actually doing right now. They're slowly taking away things from us, things that we think are minimal. But when everybody who's sleeping wakes up, the world's going to be changed. Again, I don't think things are getting better. I think things are rolling backwards. And Phyllis said it. She said it hasn't gotten to bloodshed yet. I'm thinking it's going to get to that point. That's it.
Thank you, Greer. And then we have Phyllis and then Stanton.
So I wanted to say, yeah, the Irish in Ireland are actually insulted by dyeing Miller Lite green. They've got Guinness and Harp. You know, if you want to drink Irish beer, drink Guinness and Harp.
Bill?
Yeah, so where I work, we have a DEI department, and something that's changed. I'm sure they have a hard job, and I would like to see them do more. But something that's changed is, we got Martin Luther King Day off as a holiday. We have like educational opportunities for like Hispanic Heritage Month, the Lunar New Year that happened recently. People from those communities were giving stuff away and educating about them. We have more attention to Black History Month and Women's History Month, which is this month. You know, somebody I know was talking about a concern she had, and I said, why don't you go talk to the DEI department and see if they can help, you know, in any way. I do think, I do agree with Greer that what's going on right now is a chipping away at the rights of a lot of different groups. And it's actually pretty bad for some of them. There are transgender people right now in fear of their lives because of the states that they live in, like Oklahoma, Tennessee. It's terrifying. And it's terrifying that there are people who are just ignoring that and won't be upset until it's their specific group. And the people with the most power right now, whether it's monetarily or like just white privilege, need to get up and start fighting for the rights of those people, whether you like their life or not. They are citizens and they deserve it. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Stanton and then Bill, and then I think we'll move on to the wrap up after that. Okay, Stanton.
Last night I was watching Bill Maher, and Bernie Sanders was on, and he was talking about how 3 people in the United States own as much wealth as the bottom 50% of the people in the United States. It was Bezos, Elon Musk, and Bill Gates. And so I think that things are also being taken away from poor white people and lower middle class white people, and that's why they're so disaffected. So I think there's just this old, you know, what's the expression, you know, turn them on each other kind of mentality that's happening. And I think it goes back to, again, a corporate elite and how the country's being run. And in this case, I will include Democrats and Republicans together in that regard, about selling out to the big corporate interests. And on the same show, the comedian Russell Brand was on, and they were talking about Brexit. And Russell Brand said, well, the people of Great Britain didn't necessarily want to leave the European Union, but it was a way of saying F you to the establishment of Great Britain and the power elites there. And even though it's not working out for them, they did it just to say, we don't like the way the country's being run. So we're going to do something even though it's against our own best interests. And I think that's what's happening in this country. I think people are being pitted against each other because it's just a way to distract. And it's just a way to get people from not focusing on what real problems are, just turn people on each other. And therefore you can do whatever the heck you want to do behind their backs. So I think we are going backwards, but I think it's not just minorities. I don't think it's just LGBTQ community. I think it's everyone in the country who is not part of the power elite. And I think that's probably the vast majority of people in this country.
Thank you, Stanton. Very well said. Bill?
Disagree with something I think Phyllis said. Well, I think she would agree with my comment. Bloody conflicts have been going on for a long time. They're not started. They started centuries ago with cops killing Black men. And now radical right people are killing liberal whites too, are trying to attack on Paul Pelosi and attack on Michigan elected officials. Republicans are trying to make it hard for middle class and poor whites. But they do that so they can blame Democrats. They want to tank the economy so they can blame Democrats. I've been watching Star Wars spinoffs, and it's a great comment on authoritarianism and fascism. One of the people from the evil empire said, people really want order. And so we're going to create a lot of disorder. So they want us to protect them from the order that we created. And that's exactly what the Republicans are doing. So it's very sad. Someone said things are getting worse, and I would agree with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, it's 11:05, and I think that we can move into the wrap up, particularly given the people that haven't spoken throughout the discussion. So we will start off with Marva, and you have your full 2 minutes.
Very interesting discussion. I agree with all your position in expression. I feel sorry for white illiterate, uneducated people, because once they get use all the people that minorities, poor Black people and people of color, the white wall of people and rich people will come for you next. And this is played out in history all over the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Marva. Next we have Amal.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, great article. One of the things I noticed as it relates to Ron DeSantis, I don't think Ron DeSantis is a fascist. I think he's very American. The things that he's doing is the things that he's doing, the things that he's trying to implement are very American in their origin. America has never wanted diversity. It's never wanted inclusion. It's never wanted equity. So I don't see how those things that he's doing as it relates to those three things are being seen as fascist. That's very, very American what he's doing. So I'm not surprised though. This has been the United States history for a very long time. So the people who are surprised, I'm surprised that they're surprised. So I don't see nothing that Ron DeSantis is doing that that should be surprising or that should be seen as not being American. What he's doing is very American in its origin. Teresa had brought up a very interesting thing as it relates to white people having culture beyond these shores. Those white people are very aware of their culture beyond these shores. The interesting thing is that everybody who came from Europe, there was a time when there was some Europeans who came to this country that they weren't seen as white. In other words, they wasn't seen as white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. That was a WASP. That was a title that was only inclusive of people who are of English origin. So the Irish, the Italians, there were Jews. Those people weren't seen as white when they first got to the United States. They even though they were European, they weren't seen as white because white was a distinctly unique American thing that developed here to exclude everybody else and to only include English, or in other words, white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, Anglo-Saxons. So, but the white people, the people who done now got an upgrade and been included into whiteness, they're very aware of their origins in Europe, whether that be Ireland, Scotland, France, Spain, so on and so forth. So, good article.
All right, thank you, Amal. Okay, now we move on to the people who get, it's 11:10, who get
Oh.
the one.
What about Francie? Did she talk during the meeting?
Oh, that's right. I'm so sorry. You're absolutely correct. And I have her name here staring right at me. I'm so sorry, Francie. You
Oh.
have your opportunity to give your 2 minutes.
Well, once again, this was a wonderful discussion. And I don't know if I can express some of my ideas succinctly, but I'm not sure I would agree with them all. I just think there's a lot of complacency among people. I don't know any white people who want to see racism continue, who want to see women oppressed. I don't see that as a majority, but I see the minority as being very clever, very organized, and very uneducated about where all this could lead. I feel more attuned to what Stanton was saying in his summary or his last comment. But I think it's a scary time. And I do believe it is fascism that we're facing. I'll be interested to see which autocrat wins out on the Republican side. But I hope that America doesn't follow them. Anyway, great discussion. Everybody had such wonderful input. And thank you, Nancy. Good topic.
Well, thank you, Francie. Okay, now we can move into the 1 minute wrap-ups and whatnot. Okay, so I'll go in the order of how I see you on my screen. Okay, so Marion, you're first.
I'm not afraid to say that I'm afraid that there is going to be a very great upheaval in this country. Everybody sitting here in this discussion knows of Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'm sure you've seen her remarks, heard her. She's actually advocating that the country be divided into red states and blue states. And I heard these words coming out of her mouth. She said they should go to war. So I don't think any of us sitting here are taking this lightly, that you have these people, some call them rabble rousers, but I think the woman is dangerous, and she isn't the only one that has these feelings that the country would be better if it was divided and that people would actually go to war and kill each other. So I, for one, am afraid. And we are going backwards instead of forward. This is not a good time in this country. This was a very good discussion, good topic, and I really appreciate everyone's views this morning.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Marion. Bill.
I think Amal said it's not fascism, it's I forgot what he said, but I think the point was I think their country's always had fascist elements. Certainly has always had racist elements. Anyway, enough mumbling. I thank you for a great discussion, Nancy, and a great article. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Teresa.
Thank you. I think between conservatives and liberals or progressives, the one thing we can agree on is diversity. The founding fathers didn't want to pick their own cotton or their own tobacco or whatever. That's why they chose to have other people. So it was never a question of diversity of the society. Where we disagree is, should there be such a concept as being in your place and staying in your place and knowing your place? So diversity, I don't think we disagree on. We know that we are a diverse society. What someone like me doesn't want is to be locked into what you think a Black woman can do. So when we look at diversity, equity, and inclusion, I really look at the equity part of it, because our society did start as diverse. We continue to struggle with the idea of this hierarchy and knowing your place and whatever. So I would fight far more for equitable and inclusion into where I can go based on my own personal strengths and limitations, because it's always been the case that we've been a diverse
The
society.
timer went off.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Teresa. Beatrice.
Thanks for the discussion and for the article. We all need to be seen and not erased and valued. When I was an elementary, middle school principal, we celebrated the contributions, culture, language, everything of every group. And we had a separate month, even European American History Month. And that it's important. We need to have a deep dive into our differences and celebrate them. When DeSantis talks about his culture wars, people need to ask him, how's your state doing? What's going on with the healthcare of your people? Don't let him magnify his campaign issues to try to coalesce his group. Let him talk and find out how your citizens have healthcare, how are things going in justice. You know what I'm saying? I'm so tired of him opening his mouth with these horrible ideas that he's putting into legislature, and what he's doing to this new college is just unforgivable. I hope those children do survive. But I think we need to not let him magnify his foolishness with his attempts to go around campaigning. And I agree, I think he's not going to make it on the big stage. He doesn't have what it takes. All he has is mean and Trumpism in his brain, but he's not going to make it on the big stage. Thank you.
Thank you. Stanton.
Yeah, I agree with what Amal said about the basic nature of the country and what the country has been, but I also think that there's the countervailing argument about the struggles that various people have made throughout the last century, at least, for women's rights, civil rights, Hispanic rights, gay rights. You name it, there are people who are, brushing up against the structure and trying to improve the society and the quality of life for people in the country. So while we are a country that's roots are ugly and we're a country who has a history of violence and oppression, we're also a country that's striving for improvement and the betterment of people and the society. And that's what we got to keep fighting for, as opposed to caving into the fact that we're already a fascist country, because if that's the case, it's time for me to start looking for a passport. Thanks.
Thank you, Stanton. Cindy.
One of the things in response to Stanton is, and where do you go? I mean, seriously, we looked at this when Trump was running for election, and then again when he's now talking about it again. If you look at other places where there's decent healthcare and acceptable place to have your company come visit or whatever, there are not as many desirable places to move compared to what we have, especially in New Orleans. It's a real dilemma. I mean, it's a wonderful dilemma because it suggests, look at what you have compared to the world and evaluate, is it worth upheaval to go and live in a different place? State, country, city, I don't know. But obviously we've stayed here. But it's a valid question and may seriously become more urgent. And the other thing is I'm getting older, so that's a balance to put against considering acquiring a new country, a new city, a new set of people, the whole bit. It's a real dilemma. So we have to work for what we have and what we treasure.
Thank
Put
you,
your
Cindy.
values where your mouth is.
Thank you. All right. Jean.
Well, I vacillate between feeling hopeless and being hopeful. Basically, I take heart from Glenn saying there's no way that DeSantis could ever become the president of the United States. You know, I worry about some of the areas that people are living in and some of the mindsets. Maryland, I'm very lucky to live in. We have a Black governor. We have an Asian American woman lieutenant governor, a Black attorney general. We have Black heads of police, and we're all trying to work together to make things better for everybody here. We're also moving towards being a non-white plurality in this state, or at least in my county. And we're all trying to make things better housing. We've got to keep fighting for better things for all of our people. And we've got to stand up to those who want to make this country, who don't want to make this country what we say it should be, you know.
There you go.
So
Right.
I say amen.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Jean.
everybody. I appreciate everybody's comments. And I'm going to put down cream when I put down what my ethnic group is. I'm not white. If you look at the counter behind there, that's white. I'm not white. My hair is white. I'm not white. We all came out of Africa. Okay.
Yes, we did. Thank you, Jean.
Okay. Have
Phyllis.
a good day.
Wow, I didn't think I was up this soon. Well, it was a good topic. I think Ron DeSantis is hopefully gonna lose all the rest of his political aspirations and become a forgotten idiot. I think that we who care about the equity, diversity, and inclusion of others are the majority. The other side only wins when they cheat, and we have to stop them from cheating. That is our big issue. And, I think it's kind of an exercise in white privilege to consider moving somewhere else instead of staying here and supporting the people who are going to get the worst of it. Although I've been tempted, but you have to have really specific qualifications to go to certain other places. And I don't think
financial means.
And financial means. And Canada's, I don't think, is even taking people over a certain age. And
all right, I heard the bell go off.
no, you
You
didn't.
did? Yeah, it did go off. It did. You got good hearing there, buddy.
Glenn, when you start facilitating, you can butt in.
That's true, Glenn. We've been on you for a while about that. But thank you, Phyllis. Okay, Marla.
Yes, I just wanted to second what Phyllis said about privilege and moving. I feel like those who may want to consider moving or would need to consider moving are the people who are most unable to do so. due to financial means and so forth. And then I just want to say great discussion. I really love listening to what everybody had to say. I think as Americans, we have so much work to do to reclaim our humanity overall and just divest from this individualism. The hardcore individualism is what I'm talking about, not getting rid of all of it, but divesting from that individualism that just diminishes us as a community and brings us further away from understanding each other and puts us into isolation, I think. So DEI, in my opinion, is just a little tiny piece of something that helps bring community together, at least in the university setting. So that's it. Thank you, everybody. It was great.
All right, thank you, Marla. Leonetta.
It was a wonderful article, Nancy. Thank you so much for the bringing that up. I wish luck for the students in Florida. And Stanton, I hope you're right that he's just a politician and he doesn't need mental health services. I just wanted to, I put this question up. I wanted to actually during the discussion, but I just wanted to put this question out. If y'all can remember a couple of years back, the census made this report that in so many years that the United States would not be a majority white country, it would be a majority people of color. And since that time, the politicians have been doing different things to stop that from happening. What I want to put on people's minds is that all of these laws and things that are being made now, when that does happen, the population shifts to being majority non-white. And these laws are on the books. What do you think? I mean, has people thought that far in advance? And Stanton, after the meeting is over, I have a question I want to ask you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Leonetta. Greer?
This country was built by those that they felt were the least worthy. As time has gone on, those who are not white and European in nature were considered less than. This country will never be what it could be until it's about everybody having equity and safety. Nobody can be safe if everyone isn't safe. Nobody can prosper unless everyone has the ability to prosper. As long as you're trying to hold anyone down in the mud, then you got to stand in that mud yourself. That's it.
Thank you, Greer. And Glenn?
America the beautiful. I'm not going nowhere, and although they got many countries I can go to and live off a Social Security check and have maid service, but I'm not leaving America the beautiful. And I know this is just a little bump in the road we're going through. That's all it is. In the time of the history of America, just nothing but a little bump in the road. And Stanton, if he's been watching news, that if he go back to Israel, he gonna find another way who is trying to get rid of the with that.
What? Glenn, did we lose you?
I think he was trying to say they're trying to get rid of the judiciary system. And yeah, no, that sucks. It's bad. Yeah. And by the way, that was just a rhetorical bit of fluff about getting a passport. Just FYI, everybody, I can't afford to go anywhere. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Stan. Well, I thank everybody. Yeah, the attack on diversity, equity, inclusion, I mean, it was struggling. It's always struggling. You know, we've never had full diversity, equity, and inclusion in this country. And I don't know if we ever will, but what little there was, it was struggling as it is. And to see someone come out and formally just dissolve an office that is definitely needed or just the concept of diversity, equity, inclusion, which is needed in every organization in this country, that was never founded or on diversity, equity, and inclusion to begin with. And the ideal, I've always said this, that the ideal of, what is it? Whatever it says in the Truth, Justice, and the American Way stuff was only meant for a certain group of people. I mean, white, male, heterosexual, Christian men. That's who was included in that. And if you don't fall within that demographic, we are not talking to you. This was not meant for you. I think, I said that DeSantis is following in Trump's footsteps. No, really, he's following in George Wallace's footsteps. That's whose footsteps he's following in. All right. George Wallace did the same thing. He used the same tactics in his bid for election of governor of Alabama. And when he went to attempt to go on the national stage, someone attempted to assassinate him. In the oh gosh, I used to live there in the Laurel Shopping Center parking lot in 1972. So hopefully DeSantis will not get far. I feel really bad for the people in Florida. My brother lives in Florida. And it's scary for people who live in Florida. Also, someone said, to be wary of, all this infighting amongst us. I've been saying that for years, that the Russians, definitely were planting these seeds throughout the elections that we were having, so that we're fighting amongst each other and not paying attention to what's going on, with China, with North Korea, with Russia, and all these other countries that, are plotting against us while we're busy, making mountains out of molehills of what's going on in this country. And we really need to open our eyes. I have a niece who is going to school in Hawaii, and that is very concerning to me. That I think that to send a message to the United States, somebody, North Korea, China, or whatever, if they want to, would attack Hawaii first. And that is scary to me, extremely scary. So anyway, thank you all for a great discussion. It was great to listen to.